When a school closes, we usually hear about the obvious things, right? Budgets, enrollment numbers, things like that. But what if the real story is about who gets to keep their place in a city that's rapidly changing? Well, that's the question at the very heart of this story from Hartford, Connecticut.
And this isn't some hypothetical question. In a school district where the vast majority of students are Black and Latinx, this question has profound, real-world consequences. We're not just talking about empty buildings here. We're talking about the future of entire communities.
To really get a sense of the stakes, just look at these numbers. In Hartford, the school district is overwhelmingly Latinx and Black. And these aren't just statistics, of course. They represent the families and the neighborhoods that are on the front lines of every single policy decision.
So, how do we start to make sense of all this? Well, we can turn to the work of Dr. Robert Cotto Jr. He's actually dedicated his career to untangling this very issue, and his research, it gives us a really powerful way of seeing the bigger picture.
Dr. Cotto's perspective is shaped by a pretty unique journey. He's moved from Ivy League classrooms to actually serving on the Hartford Board of Education. That gave him this rare view of the system from both the outside looking in and the inside looking out.
And his experience is just incredibly diverse. He's been a teacher right there in the classroom, a policy fellow in the State House, and a community leader on the ground. So he gets the theory, he gets the policy, and he gets the real-world impact.
And this right here is what really drives his work. As the grandson of Afro-Puerto Ricans and indigenous Peruvians, Dr. Cotto's scholarship isn't just academic. No, it's deeply personal. It's rooted in a commitment to the very communities that are facing these inequalities head-on.
So this unique perspective led him to a core finding in his research, a powerful new term that honestly gets right to the heart of what's happening with school closures in Hartford. This was the fundamental question driving his entire dissertation. Are school closures just about budgets and enrollment, spreadsheets and numbers? Or are they part of a much larger story about who gets to live in the city and how it's being reshaped?
And here it is. The term he coined is desegregation by dispossession. The idea is that while the official story, the one you hear, is about creating better, more integrated schools, the actual result is the displacement of the very communities the system is supposed to serve. And it all makes way for redevelopment that caters to a whole different demographic.
He built his case through a really rigorous three-part investigation. First, he looked at the history of recent school closures. Then, he analyzed how different parent groups were treated. And finally, he connected it all to the disruptions we all remember from the COVID-19 pandemic.
And that brings us to the human side of this story. Because when these huge policy decisions are made, whose voices actually get a seat at the table?
This simple, powerful quote from his research just cuts right to the heart of it. In the world of school choice and district policy, the playing field for parents who are advocating for their kids was anything but level.
His research uncovered this really stark divide. Parents from the neighborhood schools, who were mostly Black and Latinx, they found that their concerns were often just dismissed. But on the other hand, parents from magnet schools, the public schools with specialized programs, who tended to have more social and economic capital, well, their voices were heard loud and clear. And the story, it just keeps expanding beyond the school walls. Dr. Cotto connected these school closures to the city's housing development. And get this, a staggering 80% of new housing was market rate, meaning it was priced for higher earners. Only 20% was designated as affordable. So it really begs the question, who is this new housing actually for?
This pattern, he argues, creates what he calls a climate of disenfranchisement. It sends this clear, unspoken message to the city's long-standing Black and Latinx residents that the redeveloping city, well, it might not have a place for them anymore.
And the impact just ripples through the entire system. Those school closures back in 2018 alone, they affected roughly 10% of all Black and Latino teachers in the district. And this isn't just about jobs. It's about communities losing educators who look like them, who understand their lived experiences.
Okay, so why does a story about one city matter to all of us? Well, because the patterns and the forces at play in Hartford, they're happening in cities all across the country.
So what should we really take away from all this? First, school closures are never just about budgets. They're about who our cities are for. Second, the idea of school choice can actually deepen inequality if we're not careful. And finally, when a school closes, what's lost isn't just a building. It's history, it's culture, it's a community's claim to the city itself.
All of this leaves us with one final, really crucial question. As our cities continue to change, Who holds the power to decide which communities, which histories, and which people are preserved and which are left behind? It's a question we all need to be asking.